So, good afternoon, everyone. Today, in conjunction with the Suicide Prevention Day, I am moving away from my usual leadership and entrepreneurship strategy workshops. And what I'm going to do is to focus on the one thing that has affected many people today. So, let's talk about mental health, resiliency, and job hunting in a very difficult AI world. So last year, under the corporate entrepreneur umbrella at NLB, I coached the over 40 years old, who have been let go in their jobs and having a very tough time getting jobs again. My role was to kind of like teach the unemployed over 40s some entrepreneurship skills so that they can find alternative pathways to make an income. But that was last year's problem. It seems like that was the only thing we had to worry about, which was, people who were over 40s who were unemployed. But this year, we are really facing unprecedented jobless numbers. And just last week, Channel News Asia's Talking Point basically addressed the topic called 30 and jobless. And just last month, I think Straits Times reported the fresh graduate unemployment rate at 51.9%, which is truly unprecedented. Times are very tough, and students are graduating with huge student loans, with no jobs. And I believe that this is the time to sort of address both alternative income pathways, starting a business, and also a little bit about mental health and resiliency. There's a lot of content to cover today, so I will need your participation later. I'll be asking some questions during the presentation. I'll appreciate it if you just go ahead and type your answers into the chat box as we go. And at the end, we'll open up for Q&A, and then you'll be able to unmute yourself and to ask more specific and longer questions. So we organize, I mean, if we also run out of time, if we run out of time, come to our business advisory strategy clinic at the Central Library. We're organizing the next one on the 18th of October. We organize one face-to-face clinic every 2 months, so you have about 3 hours to ask your questions and also to learn from other people's questions. The session on 18th of October will actually be our last session for 2025 because I won't be around November and December. So don't miss it if you want to meet me live to ask questions and to network with other people as well, because we have a networking session at the end. The link is actually available on this link tree, or Jen can also provide the link on the chat and, or just, easily scan the QR code there. So let's move on. So let's open today's session with this key question, which is, how many CVs do you think you need to send in order to get a job offer now? So please type your answers in the chat, and I'll come back to your answers in the next slide. So just type, just in your mind, how many CVs do you think you need to send in order to get a job offer now? Okay, and moving on while you guys are typing what you think is that number. So we often see these headlines, 30-year-old man sends hundreds of job applications and settled for a $1,000 pay cut. Or we also see, job seeker applied for over 100 roles in 6 months. And we also have, articles like, fresh grad can't even get an interview after 4 months of job hunting. And this one is a little bit more specific here. After 4 months of job hunting, sending out 329 applications, going through 16 interviews and 3 final round rejections, then they finally found one job. So what exactly is that number in your mind? So remember, like in sales, job hunting is basically a numbers game. In the past, when we were in the good old days of, 2007, when I first graduated, every 10 cold CVs I sent led to one phone interview. And every 4 phone interviews led me to one first interview. And every 4 first interviews led me to a second interview. And every 4 second interviews led me to a final one single job offer. So if I wanted one job offer, I needed to send 10 times 4 times 4 times 4 CVs, which is 640. And mind you, this was just going to lead me to one job offer. So if you wanted companies to compete for you with multiple job offers, you need to double or triple that effort. For me, I sent a total of 1,200 CVs cold in that time period, and I got 2 job offers. And then I ended up choosing the Capital Group in LA. In 2025, from my discussions with students, companies don't really do phone interviews anymore, but the ratios have sort of increased. So intense competition from AI, geopolitical instability, a lot of fake jobs on job portals. It now actually takes you about 50 cold CVs to get to one first interview, and 6 first interviews will get you to a second interview, and 6 second interviews might get you a job offer. This then means that you need to send 1,800 cold CVs in order to get a job offer. This also means that if you only send 20 CVs every weekday, you will need 90 weekdays before you will get a job. And that is 4.5 months. And this is a very typical statistic for a fresh graduate sending out CVs cold without any networking or job experience. So if you have 5 years of work experience and a very good network, and if you're willing to reduce your salary expectations, for example, your ratios might actually improve. So how do you improve your ratios? So basically, you need to attend, relevant trade shows. You need to take on intern to permanent roles. Or you can try a LinkedIn content strategy to make yourself look like the industry leading expert. Or you can give talks and speeches on industry topics, or you can create WhatsApp groups and tennis sessions for your industry, or you can make yourself known to key headhunters and recruiters on LinkedIn. You will improve your ratios if you're not doing it cold, right? Just sending doing a CV drop. And you will improve your ratios from 50 times 6 times 6 to maybe 20 times 3 times 3. But know that this is all a numbers game. And right now, I feel that the numbers in people's minds are not correct. So let's go back to the chat and see what are the numbers that you think is, the total number of CVs that you need to send. So here I am seeing. So Valerie, very, very good statistics. So you probably experienced. So, you sent 161 CVs to receive 2 job offers. And then for Shireen, she said 80. For Audrey, she said, 100 to 150. Iris basically mentioned 400. Linda says 200. Now, Carrie says maybe about 100. 200. So I would say that those numbers were probably last year's numbers. We have never seen unprecedented situations like this right now, where I would say that, it is a numbers game, but the numbers have truly shifted and it's a leapfrog shift. So like I said, for fresh graduates, the number is right now about 1,800 from my conversations with those that did get a job. I had a recent of course, if you graduate with first class honors with distinction and, a lot of, internships under your belt. I had one intern that said that, he sent out 798 CVs and managed to get one job offer. So the thing is, and that was his credential. So it was very, very good. But, for most normal graduates graduating with just a merit, then it's probably 1,800 CVs. So for most people that are about 30 years old, if you're sending cold CVs only, that number is about 700. And of course, for each person, it's a different circumstance that will lead to a different ratio. But you need a relevant and reasonable number in your head and a strategy to improve your ratios to avoid killing your confidence. Because I've even heard of people sending out thousands of CVs and still going nowhere. But actually, they're getting close. So just, I would say to them, don't give up. So instead of asking yourself, why does nobody want to hire you? Are you that bad? And then just slowly letting your confidence die. Just tell yourself the number is 1,800. Have I reached that? Don't give up. Keep sending. You're almost there. And to illustrate this point, I'd like to show you a video.
When I was 16 years old, it's the age that you have to be in order to legally walk the floors in Vegas. And my grandmother was playing the slot machine and she was losing, yet she was still playing. And she said to me, do you know how many auditions the average working actor needs to go on typically before booking a job? I guessed 1 in 10. She said to me, no, it's 64. But when I started auditioning, I just started counting. So 1 audition, 2 auditions, and it was the 48th audition that I got that job. My agent then, who is still my agent today, she later asked me, because it was way over a year, she said, how did you not quit? And I told her that story with my grandmother, and she went, oh yeah, that's true. I wish more artists knew that. I wish more creative people understood that, because then they wouldn't be so hard on themselves. And when you're hard on yourself, unreasonably so, things are going to start kind of falling apart.
So after you've lost your job, don't be unreasonably hard on yourself. Recognize that job hunting is a numbers game. Use certain strategies to improve your ratios, and then ask yourself, how much more time do you need before you hit your final number? So I do agree with you. 1,800 is absolutely ridiculous. We shouldn't be in the state we're in right now. But instead of fighting with the statistic, which is something that you cannot control, focus on improving your ratio, which is the one thing you can control. So meanwhile, to stay relevant in a difficult job market right now, I'll be addressing some of these traits that will be able to help you to get through this. I will start by first sharing a little bit about myself, my story of resiliency. And then what I want to do is to address some of the key traits it would take for you to be resilient throughout this entire pursuit. And the resilient mindset that, I hope that you'll be able to walk out with.
When I was sick,
So in 1999, after about 9 private doctors failed to diagnose me, I basically ended up in a hospital about to fall into a coma. I took my whole O levels in a hospital. Basically, my pancreas had died, and I was diagnosed with insulin-dependent diabetes, requiring between 5 to 7 manual injections a day. So I was one of the first few patients that was fitted on the insulin pump in the year 2000 when Medtronic first arrived in Singapore. And my monthly medical bills came up then to about 5,000 a month in the year 2000. And that is if I didn't end up hospitalized for complications, which happens about twice a year. And that was like a 10 to 20K bill each time. I was uninsured and I became uninsurable. And I realized that if I graduated with just a salary of 3,000 a month, I would not survive. So I told myself I needed to work very hard. And so from there, it was my trajectory to becoming this mad overachiever. So from 2000, I did 2 universities at the same time. I studied mechanical engineering at NUS in a day school. And then at night school, I studied ACCA at the Oxford Brookes University. And at the same time, I was giving math tuition to 4 kids and also helping my family business in auto parts manufacturing in Johor. I studied very, very, very hard, and I made it to Dean's List in engineering as well. In 2004, I had my big break. I went on the NUS Silicon Valley program through NUS in San Francisco. And in this program, I interned for a tech startup for 1 year while attending entrepreneurship lessons at Stanford. It was a very life-changing experience. We sold solid-state drives to aerospace and military clients like Lockheed Martin and NASA. And it was here that I learned that in the US, if I worked for a company with more than 90 employees, they had to overlook my pre-existing conditions and insure me as a normal person due to anti-discrimination laws. So I made it my mission to come back to work in the US through an MNC. In 2005, I graduated from both NUS and ACCA and ended up with a job in LA with then the largest asset management company in the world called the Capital Group. And I remember being featured in the Straits Times, graduate with the highest salary, earning more than 10K a month. Every 4 months in that job, I'll move to a different country to work on a different project in various departments. I was in LA, London, San Antonio, Texas. I was in Switzerland, Hong Kong, Singapore, and I was working on different projects in different departments like IT, real estate, fixed income research. I was in fund relationship management and marketing, and I was also in the global working tech projects. And after my first project in Sarbanes-Oxley, I went on to receive the highest contribution to the company award. It was a huge learning curve, but I built incredible networks after about 2 years. But it was a weird time because, after about 2 years, I started getting very, very, very sick. And I ended up sleeping 20 hours a day. I couldn't work. I thought, maybe I was too tired from this job because I was clocking 16-hour days and flying way too much. So I told myself, okay, you know what? I'll just quit. I'll just rest and travel for, 6 months and then see if I get better and, just work for another bank later. So I ended up, going to Africa, Central America, South America. I was backpacking and I was also going through, different parts of Eastern Europe with all the airline miles I had collected. I just, basically spent it all. And basically, London was my last project. So I applied to stay as a UK resident under the highly skilled migrant program. So I continued living in London. But then, I was still sleeping 20 hours a day, right? So test after test, the doctors couldn't figure out what exactly was wrong. So they just labeled it as chronic fatigue syndrome. But it's a syndrome, it's not a disease. So there's no cure other than physiotherapy and psychotherapy. So I spent my days very slowly backpacking around the world. On the days that I had energy, I would go and sightsee. Otherwise, I'm just sleeping in a hostel. And sometimes I would freelance for an online gaming company as well. And I would also, work as a e-commerce director for a medical comic book publishing company. But that was also a freelancing thing. So I told myself, you know what, I'll just rest for 6 months. But it wouldn't turn out to be this way because I quit my job and then within a few months Lehman Brothers collapsed and the entire financial sector fell apart and there was no way to get a job in finance. I couldn't get a job after 1 year, and frankly, even if I wanted to, I couldn't work because I was incredibly sick. I was still sleeping 20 hours a day. And I fell into this very deep depression. I also realized that I couldn't keep running down my savings. And then I think that was the point where I told myself, you know what, let's just take a big gamble, right? So Citigroup stock had fallen from $98 to 98 cents. And what I did was I liquidated everything that I had. I put every last cent that I had into the Citigroup stock at 98 cents. And that was my way of, telling myself, that's my way of committing suicide because I'll take a big risk, If the stock collapsed, I'll just go with it. I'll just end my life. I was so sick, what is there to live for anyway, right? But it turned out, somebody up there didn't want me to die. And instead of the stock collapsing, I actually ended up making my first million on that stock. And with the money, I bought my first three-bedroom house in Canary Wharf for 400,000, developed it into a five-bedroom, six-bathroom property. I bought it in cash, so I had no mortgage because I had no income to take on a mortgage. So I lived in one of the bedrooms and I rented out the other four bedrooms for about £1,000 each. So this monthly income on top of, my stock portfolio earnings and my freelancing jobs, that gave me time to recover and the ability to just travel. And I told myself I'll just focus on my recovery, continue adding to my property portfolio every 3 years or so. And this was the start of me building my property business in London. And I officially financially retired at the age of 29. But being in retirement was very boring, and I literally felt my brain cells were dying. And I wanted to get to a point where I was productive in society again. So in 2011, after a lot of physio and psychotherapy, I felt strong enough to be able to work about 4 hours a day. So what I did was I flew back to Singapore and I started speaking to a few startups, and I ended up buying some shares into a digital agency and tech development company called TechSailor. I handled all their business development channels, brought in a middle management layer, and I started establishing the company as the industry expert for social media marketing. And life was beginning to look up again, and I was feeling like I could contribute to society again. I was still sleeping between 14 to 16 hours a day, but I coped by having a very good staff to execute my vision. But my depression never went away because I always felt like I was just using oxygen and I'm not contributing positively to the world. And 5 years after my chronic fatigue, one day I remember just waking up and saying, you know what, today I either have to do something about this fatigue or just freaking end my life already. And I just, you know, just through my connections at Stanford, I went to the US, I had my entire DNA sequenced, and I compared my high probability illnesses to my symptoms on WebMD. And I finally went to my GP and I said, you know what, test me for this particular autoimmune condition. And they said to me, oh, you're too young to have this condition. I was like, I don't care, test me for it. They did so. And, my immunity markers were off the chart. My body was basically constantly attacking itself. And that's why I was always exhausted because my cells inside was like fighting a war constantly. And the day that they got me started on mini chemo to reduce my immune system back down to normal was basically the day that I got my life back. And I threw my newfound energy back to work. And eventually, after 2.5 years of owning TechSailor, we were acquired for the million plus range. And with the new money, I bought more UK property and I continued to travel the world. And you would say to me, it feels like this should be the point in which this is the good ending to a story of tragedy by this time, but it's not going to end here. Frankly, at this time, I really believed that mini chemo was the best thing that ever happened to me. But after about 2 years of starting mini chemo, I started noticing my brain wasn't working very well. I couldn't add, I couldn't split a bill in half. I became very embarrassing in social settings because, someone would be talking to me and then suddenly I'm like this screensaver. I'm just like, I hang and, I'm not responding. And it's like very weird situations are happening to me. And that never happened to me before. I couldn't even look people in the eye during a conversation. I don't remember a lot of details. And my brain was just slowly going into decline. And I shut my doors and I sort of hid away from people. And I remember that one day I was supposed to go from my home in Canary Wharf to my hospital at London Bridge. And I took a train which was supposed to be just one direct Jubilee line, 4 stops, all the way into central London. And I remember just all I remember was just flashes of me going in and out of trains, in and out of trains, in and out of trains. And 2 hours later, I was in North London, Zone 6. And I called the hospital and told them that, I'm really sorry, I missed my appointment, but this was what basically just happened. I'm in zone 6 of London, not in the city of London. And they told me, you know what, come into the hospital immediately because this is called brain fog. It's a neurotoxic side effect of the chemotherapy causing dementia-like symptoms. So the doctor essentially said to me, we cannot bring your brain back, but you need to go out and do weird random stuff to build new neural pathways and synapses in your brain. So basically, that's what I did. I went to remote parts of Mongolia to learn the art of eagle hunting. I upholstered my own armchair after attending a course on upholstery. I joined the opera and the West End musical choir. I learned how to fly a helicopter. I went whitewater rafting in, Victoria Falls in Zimbabwe. I did the London Brighton Bikeathon and I cycled 56 miles after almost 10 hours. I was super slow. Remember, I had just recovered from chronic fatigue. I had no training. And I remember I was the last person to reach the finishing line in Brighton. And I would be always so grateful to the event organizers for keeping the finishing line opening for me, even 2 hours after the event had actually ended. I did like, gotch swinging in Africa. I snorkeled in Iceland at sub-zero temperature to see the European tectonic plates meet the North American tectonic plates. And, I did plumbing. I did all sorts of, different types of classes. And when I came back to Singapore about 3 years ago, I started to attend weird random trade shows. So I went to attend like elder care trade shows, clinical research trade shows, legal tech festival, which is actually happening right now. If you guys are interested in attending, it's free. Um, I also went to, the Natural Disasters Expo, and it was truly mind-blowing. And my mind just opened up, and I learned so much about, medical evacuations, disaster relief, and also how people were giving caregiving support to, special needs and the elderly in Singapore. And what I did was I put my Skills Future credit to good use as well, and I did a Duke NUS Executive Certificate on Medical Device Regulation, which really helped in my work right now as a patient advocate. And after about 3 years of doing weird and random stuff, I finally got my brain back and more. And I realized I was actually thinking at a much higher level than before. My brain moved from a tactical level to a strategic level, and I started connecting dots randomly, solving problems innovatively. And this has gone on to truly empower the way in which I do business today. So 7 years ago, I got married to one of my tenants and my twins were born. I came back to Singapore post-COVID and I started to teach entrepreneurship and leadership and I mentor a lot of startups. And I'm also a patient advocate, often connecting patient groups to clinical trials. And I have to say today that I am thankful I got sick. Without diabetes, I wouldn't have become this overachiever and done 2 degrees. I wouldn't have been able to leave the country. If I wasn't sleeping 20 hours a day, I wouldn't have been forced to quit and start my own business because right now I'll still be working for somebody. If it wasn't for illness, I wouldn't have been a person who saved a lot and kept a pot for the rainy day. I would likely have been like most young graduates who live paycheck to paycheck, buying big lattes and big coffees and spending a lot of money on holidays. I wouldn't have saved anything. And I don't think I would have survived quitting my job at Capital or being jobless for basically almost, 5 years. And if mini chemo didn't actually ruin my brain, I don't think I would have built a version 2.0 brain. So each time something bad happened and I pushed through it, new branches opened up and I realized that my life is like this tree built out of random interconnecting branches and nodes. And so today I'm going to speak extensively about building your own resiliency. So if you cannot find a job, you need alternative sources of income. This means trying a lot of weird, random things. And you will feel like you're failing a lot because you're about to be failing a lot. So what I want to ask right now is, if you know that your company has just announced layoffs, what are the first 4 steps you need to take immediately? So it's first step, before your excess is cut, gather all your pay stubs, performance reviews, any documentations that support your achievements. Most importantly, back up all the contact details of any person that you interact with on the database, if you are able to. And the contacts that you say from this office will come in handy because you can then contact suppliers or customers of your previous firm that you've dealt with and interacted with you to see if they want to hire you directly instead of hiring your firm to deal with that thing. And then maybe they can save some costs. This is the fastest way that people tend to find a job after they've left the company. The second thing that you have to do is you have to take control of your finances because you do not know if this is going to be for 6 months or whether or not this is going to go on for years. I have known bankers who were unemployed for 5 years before finding something again. So audit your expenses, cut all non-essentials, and start building a financial runway to allow you to survive, whether or not you're jobless for 1 year or 4 years. Financial clarity will give you some breathing room so that you can make smarter career moves. The next thing I have to say is you have to network, reach out and have lunch with people every single day. If you basically tell people that you just, lost your job and stuff, chances are people are going to treat you to that lunch anyway. So just call people out for lunch, seek out mentors to advise you, share your stories, update your looking for work label on LinkedIn. Do not be embarrassed that you are, looking for work. This is very, very silly. Your ego should never come in the way of your growth. I've known people that refuse to update the looking for work label, and I'm just like, then how the hell are people going to know that you're in trouble and you're looking for a job? Let people in to help you. And when you're networking, just ask for insights, not just for referrals. Remember that relationships drive opportunity. So attend a lot of these free trade shows in Singapore. Attend free random trade shows, like the way that I did it. I just Google, trade shows Singapore free, and then I just go and attend, stuff and, sit in keynote speeches and just listen and then just speak to the speakers after. And it's been very interesting. It has opened up a lot of opportunities for me. So keep talking to people, stay abreast of industry trends, especially, if you haven't worked in industry, but if you continue to attend the industry trade show, then at least you're not too far behind. This will all go towards improving your CV to job offer ratio. Then the one next thing you have to do, which is what I don't see a lot of people without jobs are doing, is that you need to reset your daily routine. You have to structure your day like it's a 10-hour day. There's morning routines, there is, learning blocks, there is, outreach time, lunch meetups. Remember that in this situation, discipline beats despair. You can grieve your loss of your job for 1 week. Then I would say 1 week is the max. Step up and move on. In the next slide, I'm going to show you an example of how to break this 10-hour day down to 3 key segments. So remember that looking for a job is a full-time job in itself. You need to still follow a schedule or time will just slip you by. Don't be somebody who is only able to send out 100 CVs after 1 year. So remember that your weekdays are 10-hour days while you focus your weekends on just family and friends. This is very important because it helps you to maintain a good, healthy balance. So if you break your day down into 3 segments, break your 10 hours into some kind of proportion of what you need to prioritize. Over here, I did a 4-4-2 hours, but you decide how you want to apportion your time based on what you need the most. So the 3 key segments here, or what I like to call, is looking for a job, so basically you spend 4 hours looking for a job, and this will maybe get you income in 1 year. And then there is another segment called income now, because you still need something that you can just go and interview and then you can find a job within like 2 or 3 days and they can confirm you and you can start your job immediately. So that's called income now. And then you also need to build something called income forever, because these days people are losing their jobs, like, after they start for 6 months, they're losing their jobs again. So I would say don't lose the component of income forever, because it gives you a capacity to be able to lose your job for short periods of time, but still be able to sustain your lifestyle. So I'll talk a little bit about each of this sector, and I'll start with the income in 1 year segment. So income in 1 year, basically, this means looking for a full-time job. That is if that's still what you want to do instead of starting a business, for example. Um, but what I would say is spend about 4 hours a day applying to 20 jobs a day. Use AI to basically embed job portal keywords into your CV so that, when you send your CV in, you will go through the HR bots that are searching for keywords that matches the job portal. And then what you want to do is to make sure that you follow up with the company. So remember that nothing is beneath you at this point in time, and every opportunity will open a new door for you. So don't say no without trying. There's a lot of roles right now that are actually intern to permanent roles. So it allows companies to test you out for about 3 to 6 months at about 50% of your intended salary before you basically move on to your full salary again. And, this allows them to test out to see whether or not this is something that, would work out for them. And then if you're a lower risk commitment, there's a higher chance that you get the role instead of somebody else. So remember that half a salary is still significantly higher than zero salary. So we have a serious unemployment rate here in Singapore, and there are some countries that also cannot find workers. So another thing about looking for, a job is to please consider relocating to countries that actually have highly skilled migrant programs where you can self-sponsor yourself without a company to sponsor your visa. So the highly skilled migrant programs that are available are in Japan, Germany, the Netherlands, UK, and Australia. And there are and these are usually the countries with, very cheap healthcare and education for your kids. And the standard of living there is usually more affordable than in Singapore. So how highly skilled migrant programs work is that if you have, say, it works off a point system. So let's say if you have bachelor's is 30 points, master's is 40 points, and PhDs is 50 points. And what they will also do is your last 12 months salary, when you add it up, it adds up to a certain number of points based on, the tiered rates. So what you want to do is then at the end of the whole thing, you tally up your total score and say if you're able to reach 100 points, you automatically qualify. And the good part about HSMP is that this class of visa usually allows you to bring your entire family with you. So your children also gets like free education, free healthcare, and things like that. To register for any highly skilled migrant program, you need to apply immediately upon losing your job, because you have to collect points based on your last 12 months salary. So the longer you wait, the less points you have to qualify. So also remember that the younger you are, the more points you get on most of these highly skilled migrant programs. So again, don't wait, apply very quickly. And then, so that's the part about looking for a job. After 4 hours of actually looking for a job, spend 4 hours actually getting some income now. And this ensures you're not running down your savings to zero and then having to resort to borrowing money. So what you want to do is, if you do not know if you're going to be unemployed for 6 months or for 3 years, what you need to do is to build income now, because it builds resiliency, because you don't know how long this is going to go on for. Running your savings down to zero, borrowing money, that's not resilient behavior. List your freelancer role on like Fiverr or Carousel, sell durians from, 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. in Geylang, or, drive Grab in the morning peak hours. Remember that you do not know how long your joblessness is going to go for, so make sure to build a temporary income runway. $2,000 a month is always better than $0 a month. And when you work part-time, you continue to network with people, and each interaction will get you closer to a referral. So I remember a news article about this Grab driver who put a QR code in the back of his Grab. And the QR code scans his CV, and then he tells his passenger that, he's looking for jobs. And, that is basically your opportunity to do also weird random stuff, right? And, eventually this guy actually got a job just by putting his QR code in the back of his Grab. And so whenever you have interactions with people through these part-time roles, you will find yourself actually having a reduced job offer ratio. So you will find your job much quicker because your number is smaller. And then finally, at the last stage, after you build your income now, I want you to think about building your income forever. And I would spend about 2 hours a day building this. So income forever would be things like write a book, do some affiliate marketing, learn how to set up AI chatbots for restaurants and service companies, and do that as a side gig. Or I would say learn to invest your money wisely to try and achieve, 15 to 20% annual returns, so that, you're only spending what you are growing your savings by, and not actually spending your savings. So remember that don't just focus on looking for a job. Also build resiliency by building income now and building income forever. And this gives you the maximum runway to go further for longer. So I'm going to focus a bit more about income now, and I'm going to give you a few suggestions on where you can go for income now. And these are kind of like the roles that, you just apply within 3 to 4 days, you can actually start. Of course, McDonald's is always hiring for 11.40, but 11.40 for a professional is really tiny. So if you want to teach, you can be a tutor, or you could be an MOE substitute teacher. An MOE substitute teacher might actually earn less than tutoring, but the good part about sitting in a classroom, just keeping the classroom quiet, is that during that whole time, you could be on your laptop and continuing to send your CV. So the thing is, even though you're working as a substitute teacher, you are also basically doubling up your time to send out CVs. Also, if you can do things like caregiving, you can babysit for Nanny Pro for about $25 an hour, or you can care for the elderly through Jaga Me or Homage for about $30 an hour. So you never know if the family of those people that you're looking after can actually refer you to jobs. And if you have special interests, go be a tour guide. It's very easy to qualify for the STB certificates. Or go create a sports networking event for your industry. So you could set up a tennis hour for all biotech people, or like a ping pong night for managers, and basically charge about $30 per person. You can also work in events at the expo for setup, and then you can attend some of the paid conferences for free when you do this. And if you have a car, drive Grab. And also, I would say monetize your passion. So do you make the most amazing cookies? Are you great at kids' parties? Do you already produce kind of like contents for, basically mommy groups or sports groups? Then you might want to consider a route in affiliate or influencer marketing to sell to your existing groups or followers. And then finally, if you have specific business freelancing skills, you can take on fractional jobs. So just list them on Fiverr, Bark, or Work. So things like, notary, accounting, data analytics, data entry, graphics design, content, copywriting, or translation work, website development, app development, social media marketing, videography, video editing, photography. So anything, if you want to find out about freelancing or fractional work, check out Freelance Creative Exchange. And I've put that website there, which is a podcast by freelancers for freelancers. So I think this is something that could be useful. And maybe later on, we would also get Carrie to maybe during the Q&A contribute a little bit more about fractional work as well, because he is a fractional CFO. So even if you work only 16 hours a day at $25 an hour, this is still $1,600 a month. And if you drive Grab for 4 hours every weekday during the surge pricing periods, you're looking at least $2,500 a month just working 4 hours a day. And if you freelance at $80 an hour on any of these, higher end fractional work, or 100 an hour for 16 hours a day, that is 5,500 a month. You might not even want to go back to full-time jobs. So this is actually, a good chance for you to learn to do weird random stuff, and a chance for you to meet people you otherwise wouldn't meet. This is also multiple touch points for people to offer you a full-time job. If you have an extra bedroom in your house, also rent that out to somebody for an additional 1,500, for example. You need to realize that the economy right now is not the same. It is unprecedented job losses across the board, both systemic and cyclical losses. So it is actually very difficult to find a role again. and you will need to have a very, very, very long runway. So please think about finding an alternative income source while trying to still look for a job. So remember, looking for a job is a full-time job. Break your day down into 3 segments. Don't focus on just looking for a job. Build resiliency by building income now and income forever. So you have to focus on all 3 things all at once. And maybe it's not 4 hours a day, maybe it's 2 days out of the whole week, but you will have to figure out your own, momentum and how you're going to get there. And you have to put in the disciplines. It has to be a 10-hour day. So what does it take to have a resilient mindset amidst a difficult AI world? So I'm going to talk about some of these critical success factors. The first step that you need to do is to build very diverse skill sets and networks. And I will start by explaining the corporate structure framework. So this is a standard corporate structure made up of 3 layers: operational at the bottom, middle managers are sitting in the tactical, and directors are sitting in strategic. There are 3 key differences between these 3 layers, and that is scope, that is sitting on the left, and timeline of planning is on the right. So the third is the depth and breadth of roles, which I'll explain in the next slide later. So in scope, operational is focused on execution of day-to-day mundane, almost repetitive work. Sometimes it can even be hour-to-hour repetitive work. Tactical basically manages those process, projects, and people. Sometimes they're called the middle managers. And strategic handles policy making both internally and externally at the industry and the political level. So for timeline of planning, operational is short term, and on the other hand, strategic is long term. So if you type on the chat right now, can people tell me how short is short term and how long you think is long term? So again, on the chat, just type when we say operational is short term, how short is short? And when we say strategic, how long is long? So thanks, Alvina. You said that for the current situation, short term is 1 year, long term is 3 years. And Diane basically said that short is about 1 to 3 years, long is about 6 to 10 years. And somebody here says 1 day, 1 year, and 3 years. And short is 1 to 2 years. Liz said short is 1 to 2 years. Long term is 10 plus years. So operational essentially can be week to week. It can be day to day. It can even be hour to hour planning in some high-tech industries. But when we are thinking long term, I'm going to ask you, how long does it take for a new drug to be invented? How long does it take for the new drug to be invented, developed, and then FDA approved, and then finally on the market? Maybe 10 to 15 years? How long do you think oil pipelines take to be laid from Russia to Germany? Would we say 25 years? So the timeline of planning is actually subjective from industry to industry. The answers you have given probably reflects what happens within your industry. So long term could be 25 years for oil and gas. It can be 2 years for F&B business. But how does knowing the corporate structure framework help us understand resiliency? Allow me to explain the depth and breadth of roles on the next slide. And to illustrate this, I'm going to talk about normal corporate jobs first, then show you what the difference is for entrepreneurs and freelancers. So in a corporate job, there are 3 levels: ops, tactical, and strategic. And within each level, there's a defined depth and breadth of skills that you will need in order to succeed at each level. So in ops, for example, suppose you are an app developer in an IT department. We need to have depth of role. And the depth of role means we need to know our stuff well. We need to know how to code. We need to know how different coding languages work. We need to understand how infrastructural systems, how each system is interlinked to each other. Then say we get promoted to tech lead in tactical. Now our role has a lot less depth. So, and then it takes on more breadth as well. So you don't do a lot more coding, but actually you start doing a lot more people and project management. So we need to also, other than people and project management, you need to basically deal with other departments. You need to build networks outside of your department. So you need to learn new skills to be able to properly conduct your jobs. So your skill set is not just coding anymore. So you need to deal with, say, HR, because you have to deal with sick leave, performance issues, you need to do new hires, you need to write job descriptions, you need to conduct interviews, you need to have skills in all that, right? And then you also need to talk to finance because you need to manage budgets, you need to approve expense claims, and you need to talk to office services because essentially you need new laptops or phones or a space for the new person you just hired. You need to order stationery. That all goes to office services. And then you have to deal with sales because you have to deal with customer complaints. And then, you have to figure out who's going to code, the new thing for, whatever thing that needs to fix the customer's problems. So for tactical, you actually spend a lot less time on depth, so a lot less coding, but more breadth. So you move from interdepartmental to intra-company. So you move from intra-departmental to intra-company. And then the IT lead, what happens when he gets then promoted to, say, CTO and he moves into strategic? This is when the depth completely disappears. There's no more coding work that happens anymore. In fact, the CTO's breadth would take him outside the company, where he needs to network in, say, political circles and media outlets, so he can then lobby for tax changes that is beneficial for his company. Or it would be something like he picks up the phone to CNN or Channel News Asia and asks for some airtime because the company is about to launch their new, big AI product. And the CTO might even have to handle, IPOs on NASDAQ, and he needs to do panels and talks at, industry conferences and trade shows. At each point when you move up the ranks, you need to develop a whole new set of management skills and networks, whether it is intra-company, inter-company, or inter-industry. So skill sets and networks are needed for each level of operational, tactical, and strategic, but they are completely different. The skill sets and the networks that you need are completely different depending on which level you sit at. Entrepreneurs and freelancers need all three to succeed because they don't just have to be very good at what they're selling. They have to learn to be the sales department. They are their finance department. They are their IT department. Basically, entrepreneurs and freelancers has to be all three to succeed. Today, what we're finding is that blue-collar roles like plumbing and car repairs cannot be replaced by AI, but many white-collar ops roles, so all the operational white-collar roles and low-level tactical roles have been replaced by AI. This means that the roles left in white-collar industries are mostly higher tactical and strategic levels. And this means that if you have not built your management skill sets and networks, you are likely going to be left behind. You need to learn to maintain a portfolio of both skills and networks in ops, tactical, and strategic in order to, basically have the widest network to be able to kind of like do whatever you're able to do and to execute things that AI cannot execute. And so it is best if you're able to develop that portfolio of skills and networks also within different countries, different industries, and different cultures. So the people that find it very easy to rebound after a job loss tends to be the people who have all three types of people in their networks, or they have all three types of skill sets. The people that are most resilient and most successful tends to be the one that knows all three layers, as it gives them the broadest coverage of people in each organization. And the people who are hired for white-collar jobs tend to now sit in tactical and strategic. So ask yourself, have you got the connections? Have you got the AI skills? If you do not have that, you need to start building that. So what are key skill sets that you need? Through my experience in mentoring startups, I find that the skills listed here are basically vital for success. So the first is channel development. Each type of channel, whether is it B2B, B2C, or P2P, which is peer-to-peer, has its own unique partnerships type. Lead generation technique has its own unique, sales and marketing strategy. I would never tell somebody to use a B2C discounting method in B2B because you would sabotage your own company. So if you want to learn more about this, I'll actually be teaching the Elite Sales Closer next year at the National Library Board again for those who missed this year's workshop. And next, you need to learn about people and project management, specifically leadership skills that can help you to achieve this. I will be teaching this in Good Boss versus Bad Boss in November. I do apologize that we had to cancel the August session, but we will try and reschedule this for November. So do stay tuned within NLB. And then professional networking. I will address this in a two-part series at NLB again next year. Then comes risk management, which is the ability to understand and predict how your company might run into trouble and how to adopt risk strategies of accept, avoid, transfer, reduce to create a functional working environment for your staff. This is something that, AI can give the strategy for, but the execution part still has to be done by a person. So I would say that learn risk management skills because this is something that's going to be very, very vital for you in order to be hired. Again, I will address this in Good Boss versus Bad Boss. Knowing how to research and benchmark is also vital because you have no idea how many business plans or startup pitches that I've seen that used very bad data to project future earnings. So I've seen like business plans that state that their revenue is going to be 2 years, that their revenue in 2 years is going to exceed the GDP of Brunei or something. And there's no benchmarking or anything. So I would say that you need to learn how to build your own business plans and how to, structure how much you think you're going to earn as a freelancer, for example. Also, knowing how to project numbers also stem from knowing how to collect numbers. So another important thing to learn is data analytics. And finally, you need to know how much and when to raise funds, how to get, government tax incentives or grant incentives. You also need to understand efficient tax structuring. So you need to learn some form of accounting, and I do highly recommend you taking some night courses at ACCA. And finally, if you want to become very good at certain AI productivity tools and agentic tools, for example, specific for your industry, I've listed some in my Linktree QR code. And those are only for marketing and content creation. But you have to find out what is the latest AI tools that are used within your industry and to become very good at it. There is no such thing as someone having a degree in that specific AI tool. So the thing is just pick up a YouTube tutorial, pick up some, method of, learning about these specific AI tools, do some freelancing roles to gain the experience, and then you can put that on your CV to say, I now have that experience with that particular AI tool. And that's probably the best way to prove it because there's no degree or no certificate for things like that. So remember that you may have lost your job, but your journey to learning has basically just started.
Of the future is adaptability and awareness quotient. You have to be hyper aware of many data points, and you've got to be able to unlearn and relearn as quickly as possible to stay ahead and stay evolved enough to deal with all the technology and AI, but nobody knows how to.
So to summarize, you need to be aware of many data points, essentially to be hyper aware of the breadth of the scope of work. So knowing a little bit about everything allows you to be able to manage the staff working for you in each, respective depth of operation. Otherwise, frankly, you won't even know if the person that you brought in is good or bad because you have no idea how to judge. You need to know a little bit about everything. And then you need to learn, unlearn, relearn, and repeat. And this is the skill of the future. So in the next trait, in the next trait in resiliency, what I would say is just get started. And I'll let Mark Zuckerberg say this.
Now, maybe you're thinking, I don't know how to get 1 million people involved in anything. Let me tell you a secret. No one does when they begin. Ideas don't come out fully formed. They only become clear as you work on them. You just have to get started. If I had to know everything about connecting people before I got started, I never would have built Facebook. Movies and pop culture just get this all wrong. The idea of a single eureka moment is a dangerous lie, and it prevents people with seeds of good ideas from ever getting started in the first place.
So remember, ideas get clearer as you work on them. You just have to get started. Every action you do leads to an outcome. This is an outcome. Don't think of it as it's a success or a failure. Instead, just ask yourself, what is the next step? What is the next opportunity? Every time you do something new branches would open from the decision tree node, creating new possibilities. So say you're interviewing and they say no to you. Don't sit in that one node and cry. Like, just ask this person, why not? Do you need to change your strategy? Ask this person if they know somebody else that you can talk to. So never let yourself sit in that one node. Always find a way to break through and have new possibilities and new pathways to walk, and then move on to your next node. It is not failure as long as you keep moving. Change your perspective, reframe that failure, and all that is life is basically outcomes and probabilities. So notice that I used the word keep moving. I didn't say keep walking, because sometimes if you're tired, you're crawling. Sometimes you're running if you have a lot of energy. After I started my property business, it took me about 4 years to eventually buy the second property again before I was able to buy one every couple of years. This is the long game. After 20 years, you will still have a decent portfolio. But the idea is that, you move there and you move and you just keep moving as long as you're consistently doing something every couple of days, every couple of months. Basically, you just keep moving. And notice how I say you keep moving. I didn't say keep moving forward. Sometimes you actually need to take a step backwards in your decision tree, right? In order to move around certain types of obstacles. So for example, I met a 30-year-old guy recently at a wedding, and he said that he was in engineering, but his biggest regret was never becoming a pilot because that was his dream as a child. And he said he was 30 years old. He could technically still go backwards and go back into training, and he can still fly for another 15 to 20 years. But what he did was he chose to stay stagnant and just tell everybody that's his biggest regret. And I feel so sad when I hear things like that. It is never too late. Stop regretting. Life is not linear. The life expectancy for most right now is about 85 years old. So don't live in regret. You can always step backwards to move forward again on another branch. And remember that there's no single eureka moment. So remember, after I retired age 29 from my property business, did I consider myself very successful and at the epitome of my career? Was that my eureka moment? After Tax Sailor was acquired for millions, was that my eureka moment? It's not, because life doesn't stop branching. And right now I'm starting 2 social enterprises and I'll see where this goes. In short, it's not failure as long as you keep moving. Just get started. Just keep opening up new branches. This is a key resiliency trait. So just get started.
Maybe you're thinking,
To be truly resilient, you also need to reframe failure in your mind. So I'll let you watch this video.
In 1968, Dr. Spencer Silver, a chemist working at 3M, was trying to develop a strong adhesive for use in aircraft construction. However, instead of creating a strong adhesive, Dr. Silver accidentally discovered a weak adhesive that would stick to surfaces but could be easily peeled off without leaving any residue. Initially, Dr. Silver struggled to find a practical use for his failed adhesive. Meanwhile, another 3M employee, Art Fry, was facing a personal frustration. He needed a solution to keep his bookmark from falling out of his hymnal during choir practice. Then, a serendipitous moment occurred when Fry attended a presentation by Dr. Silver. Inspired by Dr. Silver's weak adhesive, Art Fry realized its potential as a solution to his bookmark problem. Fry collaborated with Dr. Silver, and together they developed small, sticky notes using the weak adhesive called Post-it notes.
So Dr. Silver at 3M was trying to make the world's strongest adhesive for airplanes, and he ended up with the world's weakest adhesive, but it left no residue. What does he do when he has supposedly failed? He went around still to give talks about his failures. Unlike us Asians, who would probably be too embarrassed and just, try and hide and sweep this under the carpet. But realize that if he hadn't done this, he wouldn't have met Art Fry, he wouldn't have found an application for this particular glue, and he wouldn't have developed multiple iterations of a very great product that we now know as Post-it notes. So don't let your ego get in the way of letting other people know you're looking for a job. post regularly on LinkedIn about how certain AI tools can be used to solve certain industry problems, sell your freelance services to companies interested, and try and negotiate a job placement with them. Reframe the failure in your mind, solve real problems, and don't, if you're looking for a job, don't just tell people about your 10 years of experience, suggest ideas on how you can improve their efficiency or cut their costs so they actually have to hire you to execute it. So I hope that one day you say to yourself, I am thankful I lost my job, like the way I tell people now, I'm thankful I got sick. So to be resilient for whatever the future brings, you need to build a tree like this on the right, which is, broad and stable. And when one branch breaks off because you've lost a job, you can afford to lose that branch. You regrow from that last node. And what you do not want to do is to build an unstable lightning conductor like the one on the left, which is very narrow and unstable. The big umbrella tree with multiple branches gets you the maximum exposures to opportunities. Birds will come and nest, flowers, bees, everything will come to you. If you lose a branch, you haven't really lost much. The one on the left is not going to have a lot of flowers because it's too much sun exposure and it is too hot, right? And what you're going to realize is that birds don't like to sit on that tree, so you don't have fertilizers, right? So at the end of the day, if you have built a tree like this, it's because, a lot of people in Singapore right now, they follow this very narrow pathway of studying hard in school, go to university, get a master's, work in the same role for 10 years. That linear pathway is not resilient. It is easier for the tree to be struck by lightning or become unstable and unrooted, and just the whole tree can fall. So use your skills future credit to learn completely new things. Pick up all the classes that are free on NLB. Pick up broad management skills. Go to networking events. Go and sign up for any trade show. Just pick up AI skills from Google and Meta, who are giving out free AI training. And in this journey, you will feel like you're being pushed to the limit. You will feel like you're failing a lot. Well, congratulations, because this is the start of your greatest adventure. Reframe your mind, pivot every supposed failure towards your next goal, and don't let your ego get in the way of your success. I don't want to ever be seen driving a Grab. Why not? Just do weird random stuff. You never know if you discover new streets in Singapore and you discover this new kopi place that you like, just have some fun with it. What is so embarrassing about driving Grab? What is embarrassing about helping out as an event staff or helping out, in caregiving? Because this is the opportunity for you to do weird random stuff, for you to build a very broad tree. So, go do weird random stuff, go meet people you wouldn't otherwise meet, and go update your LinkedIn with looking for work. Stop letting your ego get in the way. And who knows, one day you will be the Durian King of Singapore and Malaysia, and you will earn far more than you ever earned as a research analyst. So I would like to end off with this video to help you reframe your perspective of being unemployed.
Notice when you take a wrong turn on Google Maps, it doesn't scream at you. It doesn't say, "You idiot, you failed." It just says, "Recalculating," and gives you another route. That's business, that's life. You mess up, cool, reroute. Maybe that wrong turn saves you from a worse crash. Maybe that detour taught you what the straight path never could. Maybe that scenic route was the exact view you needed to keep going. So stop yelling at yourself like you're lost forever. You're not behind. You're just recalculating. And guess what? You're still going to get there.
So remember, don't focus on what you cannot control. You can be upset that you've lost your job. Don't let yourself sit in that anger for more than a week. Then recalibrate, take the next alternative, and run with it. So we've now come to the end of today's session. Thank you so much for listening so well in the last hour. If you want to find out more about the entrepreneurship courses that I teach, or you need some startup advice, or you think we can partner up on a business together, or if you want to bring it in as a consultant for your business, go ahead and connect with me on LinkedIn and just send me a DM. If you have more questions about this talk, or if you're a chronic patient suffering with your condition, let's have coffee, let's talk, connect with me on LinkedIn, send me a message. So if you want to start a business, I have a section called Startup Lobang Links in my link tree. And that would get you like a cheaper corporate secretary, accountant, bank, corporate banks, and also, free TikTok ad credits. I also encourage you to be part of the Telegram Changemakers group. So I think that's the second or the third link. Do join and be aware of the events that are happening within, every time I have a new NLB thing, I will update the Telegram group. So that's the place to know what's happening. And also introduce yourself to the people in your industry, because I have different industry groups. For you, if you're looking for a job within the industry, just put your LinkedIn, in there, and someone might answer certain types of questions. And then you're like, I have an interview coming up with this company. Can anyone share some information? You never know who is working in that company right now. All the links are listed in my link tree on the QR code, or Jen again can drop the clickable link in the chat. And if you're looking for maids, you want to hire them directly without agents, scan the QR code as well, and we will let you know when we launch later this year, and we can send you a golden voucher. We also have an affiliate program coming up in December, January, where you could sign up and earn $50 for every person that you introduce to our platform. So this is also a good source of forever income if you're able to reach out to mummy or elder care groups. And finally, there are 2 feedback forms to fill out. If you fill out my feedback form, I'll send you a link to today's video, which I'll be posting to YouTube. And I will also be able to update you via email whenever I'm teaching new courses, either at NLB or at NUS. My feedback form is on the link tree. Again, it's one of the top 4 ones. But don't forget to fill out the NLB feedback form and give me 5 stars. Otherwise, NLB won't call me to come back and teach you. So Jen will present the NLB feedback form later. So remember, 2 feedback forms to fill out. And if you fill out my feedback form, don't worry about getting spammed. Most people know that I don't spam you with my thoughts and articles and ads. I only pretty much email you when there's new workshops coming up. So don't be afraid to sign up. Before I end, I also want to drive home one final point, which is please remember, this is a numbers game. And please only worry about the things that you can control. Don't stress about the things you cannot control. What you can control is your strategy to improve your CV to job offer ratio. Then work towards that number, or use this opportunity to truly start your own business. What you also can control is your relevance. You can always skill up in an area of AI automation and just contact companies to help them to automate, right? So there's a lot of restaurants and, a lot of B2C companies that, want to create some kind of AI chatbot for their website, but they don't know how to do that. Well, just reach out to them and offer like a $500 service to help them to set up. So, don't beat yourself up and question your self-worth. Find out where you fit, stay relevant with your AI skills, and you will forge a new branch in your tree. And again, go attend relevant trade shows, go meet new people, get mentors. So especially like if you are a female, there's a lot of like female entrepreneurship chapters. Like I actually just did one yesterday at ACE Singapore, ace.sg. So I would say, if you're female, go and get mentors within ACE SG in the women's entrepreneurship chapter group. And then more importantly, please, this is your one opportunity to go do weird random stuff to basically build your breadth and earn an income for a runway that you are going to need. So good luck everyone in your job hunting or business building ventures. And when you succeed in either, I will accept a coffee and cake as payment for your success. So please keep me updated, if any of these strategies actually helped you and worked for you, because feedback is always nice because I cannot see people over Zoom. So thank you. And anyone with questions, do type into the chat or do unmute yourself or switch on your video, and then I can take questions from here.
Hello, I'm just going to buy some time for people to put their questions in there and then buy some
Okay,
time.
cool.
Maybe I think there are a couple of comments in the chat, Juliet, so maybe you might want to go look through that first. In the
Okay.
meantime, I've already dropped Juliet's Linktree link over in the chat. So yes, her feedback form is there. And I've also dropped NLB's feedback form for launch programs as well. So if you could fill those out, that would be really great. In the meantime, to buy you guys some like brain space to think about what you guys would like to ask Juliet, I'm just going to go through some library resources. Okay. Oh, I've never done over the shoulder before. I'm just going to try. Okay, yes. So this program is part of Learnex Careers, which is also part of Launch. This is our link tree. It has various library resources such as the careers page, link to LinkedIn Learning. I'll talk a bit more about this later. Business library for ebooks, any upcoming career-related programs, and also a link to the Launch service and programs for aspiring entrepreneurs, which is what this program is part of. So Launch is a new service. It's not super new by now. I think most of you who have been here probably would have been following Launch for a while, but it's for aspiring entrepreneurs, micro businesses, and gig workers. So you can scan this QR code below to find out how Launch can benefit you. Oh, there's so many people still coming in. What we offer, so we offer things such as NLB resources. Yeah. Oh yes, Liz is also my partner in Launch as well. So yes, we are both librarians. So we offer NLB resources, which are curated resource guides, ebooks, business databases that you might want to use for your self-service. Business Kickstarter, if you feel like you want to talk to somebody, you can also come down to our business strategy advisory clinic, which is happening next month. But if not, you can also make an appointment with one of our specialists, and they can provide you some personalized guidance. Or you can also attend programs and workshops such as this one that provide ideas, knowledge, and networking opportunities. So we have plenty of these coming up throughout the year. Just wanted to do a spotlight on our business databases. So these are the 4 that we have available currently: Euromonitor Passport, EIU, Viewpoint, Gale, Business Insights, and ProQuest databases. So the bottom 3, these are available to you at home at eresources.nlb.gov.sg. However, if you want to check out our premium business database, which is Euromonitor Passport, you can access them through the multimedia stations at all regional libraries and also the national library. So the regional libraries would be Jurong, Tampines, Punggol, or Woodlands, and the national library is the one at Bugis. Finally, we are also still within our private libraries period. So for more resources and programs for adult learning, so the private libraries is our inaugural festival for learning for working adults. So yeah, for more resources, programs, and we even have a mini game, Tavi and the Multiverse. So Tavi is a cat going through a career crisis. It's great. And you can play a little mini game, and you help Tabi decide what Tabi wants to do next with their life. So you can go to our microsite, which is go.gov.sg/thrivenlb. We have resources there, and we also have the mini game and also the rest of our programs for the rest of September. We are library, so we have books for you to read. If you scan this QR code with your mobile phone, this should lead you to the NLB mobile app, where the librarians have curated books about creative confidence, which is our theme for private libraries this year. So this includes Creative Confidence by Tom Kelly and David Kelly, Bounce Back, How to Fail Fast and Be Resilient at Work, and Collide, Embracing Conflict to Host Creativity. So these are just some books to get you inspired. Maybe as part of your workday, you can also plan some time for reading and getting inspired with new resources. Finally, as part of your learning also, this is a public service announcement that you have free LinkedIn Learning with your library account. I don't know how many times I need to say this, but you have free LinkedIn Learning. So yes, you can access over 21,000 courses via the NLB app or the resources app website. This is just one that we've picked out for you, called How to Make Creative Thinking a Habit. Frequently asked questions include, can I link this to my regular LinkedIn account? The answer is not directly, but you can still get certificates from Library LinkedIn Learning and then upload them onto your LinkedIn account. So if you want to beef up your CV or you want to beef up your certification for free, please use this. Thank you. And finally, this is the feedback form. Thank you so much for attending our lunchtime program today. I think I see some questions coming in through the chat. I've already dropped this link in the chat. I will drop it one more time. But please give us your feedback on what kind of programs you would like to see. And I would love to see you again at another library program. Thank you so much for coming.
Jen, Valerie says, bring back Udemy.
That's not up to me.
So you know what, Valerie, in your feedback form to NLB, just write that you want Udemy to come back, because I think you're not the first person saying this as well. Because LinkedIn Learning is actually very clinical. It's not the same as Udemy. It's not very hands-on practical learning. So I've tried some of the courses there as well, and I much prefer Udemy as well. I'm like Valerie. But LinkedIn Learning is still good because does it record on the NLB account that the learning has taken place, or does it update the actual person's profile that they have done that.
So it's on the NLB account. The NLB account updates. So yeah, that's why I was saying that it's a little bit more manual. You can't link it directly because I guess like it's a premium service and a free service trying to link together, right?
Yes.
But yeah, but you can still get your certs and you can still upload them and they will still be valid. So yes.
Okay, cool. So guys, just remember when you go to LinkedIn Learning, you actually get certificates that you can actually put up on your CV as well. So LinkedIn Learning is good for that. So I haven't had any questions. Oh, how long does LinkedIn Learning membership last?
So this will last, I think, at least for the next couple of years until we do another review of our learning framework. So yes, please capitalize. I think this is what we said to people when we had Udemy also, please capitalize on it while we can, because yeah, we do as librarians take stock of the resources that we use. We are publicly funded. We do have to remain prudent about the resources that we spend. So yes, please use it.
Cool. So does anyone have very specific question? The 10-hour routine is a lot. How do you keep up your energy? Well, I cannot clock the 10-hour routine anymore because, after being this sick, usually my days revolve around 8-hour days. But I would say that if you have the energy, I mean, in the past, when I was doing 2 degrees at the same time, I was literally only sleeping like 10 hours, like 6 hours a day. So it's like, if you're younger, if say you're under the age of 30, then I would say that a 10-hour routine really isn't very difficult. And a lot of it is also it's just disciplines and the ability to be very efficient. So Valerie, I think that the 10 hours is actually doable. Actually, most people in full-time jobs are doing 10 hours. They just don't realize it because they're working through their lunch hour and they're working through some of like, and it takes an hour and a half to get to work, an hour and a half to get home. So it's actually more than 10-hour routine if they are going to work. So if it's just from home, actually a 10-hour routine is totally possible. I know that Alvina asked about Japan, Germany, the Netherlands, UK, and Australia. Those are the highly skilled migrant program. The one that I took was the UK's highly skilled migrant program. So also the good part about certain European highly skilled migrant programs is that after 5 years, you can basically apply for a PR. So that was what I basically did. So that's why I have permanent residency in the UK. Does anyone have very much more specific questions about, their job hunting journey? And also sort of like, things that I could answer. And what I would also say is, please do think about connecting with me on LinkedIn, because if you need me to do some referrals for you, I'm happy to do so as well. What is the difference you see in high-performing talents in the MNCs or even business from the rest of people? Is it just the way they think it's different? Ken, is it possible for you to unmute yourself and give me a little bit more context? What do you mean? When we talk about high performing talents in MNCs or business, like I said, it is, these people tend to have the breadth and the depth of all that 3 layers of skill set. So they are both ops and they are tactical and they are strategic brains, all packed into one, or at least very heavily dominant on the strategic tactical brain. And they just know a lot of people. So on average, like how many people do you think you need to know in order to have a very easy life, where, I'm thinking about one thing and then I think I need press releases, and then immediately be able to call somebody to get that done. And I think that life becomes very easy when you know a lot of people. And I think that when you say high performing, I think I would associate it with that. It is just essentially people that are very efficient at getting things done. It's just that it is so much easier if you know a lot of different types of people, they tell you that, hey, we are having this lunch meeting, we need catering. Then you're like, oh, I know a caterer. And then, you know, we're talking about buying laptops. Oh, I know the right guy to call. And the kind of people that are extremely efficient is just the people that just has the correct types of resources to be able to just get things done like now, and to be able to see things through. And when you're hiring, like for example, I don't come from a tech background, but you know, when I'm hiring like, you know, tech coders and things like that, how do I know what is a good coder and a bad coder? Then I need to have steps to check their work, but maybe not myself checking their work, but I need to be able to create an SOP to be able to get that done. So how do you do that? You know, you do that by asking people questions like, hey, I have this problem, like how would you do it? Like I have mentors that I basically go to myself. You know, I don't know everything in the world. I'm not like a world-class guru on every single thing. So I still have to have specific types of mentors that teach me certain types of things along the way. But when I'm thinking about high performing talents, this is what I basically think, that these are the people that have the highest, you know, skills and networks in all three layers, in like not all three layers, but also in different countries, different industries, different whatever. So it's like very, very, very wide scoped. I hope that answers your question. Vibe coders, is that going to take over SaaS in the future? Gary, can you help me with that question? Gary, are you on? If anyone has questions about fractional work as well, we also have Carrie, I hope, who would be able to help answer those questions. So Rita says 100% no. So I don't know too much about tech, but you know, if I had to redirect your question, then you know, I'll just ask the next professional, you know, and it seems like it's Rita. Gary says he can't unmute. Jen?
Oh, I'm so sorry. It's me. I made everybody mute.
Okay, so Gary, you can unmute yourself now, I hope.
Yeah, okay. Everyone should be able to
my
answer themselves
All
now.
my
right, got
business
it.
Okay, my business
Okay.
strategy consulting, class is basically also in the link tree. If you scroll right to the bottom, after all the Made Without Borders stuff, there's a section called NLB, free NLB workshops. That's the link that is inside there that you can sign up for.
Juliet, did you want me to continue with the
Yes, please,
answer?
Gary.
Sure. From the perspective of general coding, yes, vibe coding will take a lot of jobs away. But then when we come down to very specific, you need to be able to articulate what is the ultimate purpose of that. So the structuring and all of that, you will still need coders, and to troubleshoot when problems come up. Because while AI is getting much better at this, we are not yet at a stage where it will be able to completely do it now. However, in the future, it will.
Thank you, Gary. I hope that answers your question. Otherwise, Valerie or whoever asked that question, please go ahead and just put in, or Matt, if you could just, you know, put in the next kind of a query for Gary. Ken again asked a question about fractional work is sometimes like having two jobs at the same time. I think it is not, that's not how I would think about it. How I would think about it is that this is basically and it's a side income, right? So freelancing can also be your main income if you're doing this full time. I know a lot of people who have transitioned into full-time freelancing because they realize that if you work as a marketing consultant, you can maximum earn maybe about 4,000 at your company per month. But they've realized that if they're taking on, you know, certain marketing type jobs, they can be earning between 80 to 150 per hour. And then they realize that they're really just working about 6-hour days and they're already making that same salary. So why bother going back? So I have people that, you know, do fractional work, fractional marketing work and stuff like that. And then eventually realize that actually they don't want to look for a job anymore. They just continue building this into their own business. They start this, you know, they turn this entire thing into a business, and they start hiring other people to continue doing the work as well. So I have seen things like that happening and people actually succeeding from freelancers building it into a full-fledged company with like 20 employees. So I have seen things like that happen before. It's not like it's having two jobs per se. It depends on what you're putting in at the same time. You know, remember my 3 segments, you know, look for a job, income now and income forever. So income in 1 year, income now, and income forever. So at any point in time, you're supposed to juggle all three things. You have to juggle all three things. And I've been very, very thankful that in my early days, I've also been putting a lot of, things into investments and stuff like that. So the thing is, I've always had that income forever sort of built up, so that, when I lost my job, when I was traveling, and things like that, I was still never really spending my savings. I was just spending the 10% that was made on my savings, every single year through my investments. So the thing is, once you're able to get up to a certain level, you're not actually needing to spend on your savings base. You're just spending on the earnings of your savings base. So it's just that, at any point in time, you need to be juggling all three. And that builds that resiliency. It's not like you cannot think of it as having two jobs because, like I said, looking for a job is a full-time job in itself. So if you think about it, it's just you're playing different roles. You have different hats to wear. When your company does not want your staff to have a second income, no side income. So I've known companies that do this, but at the end of the day, whether or not it is enforceable, it's a lot of contract terms are actually not enforceable, like non-compete clauses. Some of the non-compete clauses are not actually enforceable in certain circumstances. So if we talk about, whether or not you're allowed to have a second side income, I don't think that companies have that right to basically tell you that you're not allowed to have a second income. And if they ever take you to court, which is very unlikely that they will ever take you to court because they would know they cannot win a case like this. So the whole like no side income thing is only if there is a conflict of interest. Thank you very much, Ken. So when there is a conflict of interest and then you're actually working for their clients or you're working for, within the same industry, then it becomes a very difficult thing. But if say you are basically working in biotech, but your side income is baking muffins, they have no right to stop you from doing that. And there are certain jobs like, pilots or, air stewardesses where they are very specific that if it becomes a safety issue, so it's not just conflict of interest, it is also a safety issue where if the pilot is like flying every 3 days because that's mandated rest, but of that 3 days, the pilots are working 2 of those days, then the pilot is not really resting. Then if it becomes a safety issue, then yes, there could be a problem with them earning a second income. But usually in those roles, they're paid, well enough to not need a second income. But also what defines second income is also very difficult. Like if you're baking muffins and you're just selling like 4 tubs a month or 4 tubs a week, is that considered a job? Is that considered a second income? So sometimes I think it's very hard to define, and most companies will never take you to court for it, or they might just issue you a warning letter to stop, and then take that letter to like a lawyer friend or a HR friend and ask whether or not that is something that is actually valid that they can actually stop you from doing. What AI tools are you using to manage your multiple roles? So I actually use like several AI tools in like my business, but most of it is not actually used by me myself. It's used by my staff. So again, marketing, types of AI tools is used by my marketing staff, and then we have AI tools that are used by the tech staff. And it's just that whenever they ask me for access, I will always say, okay, just buy the access to those AI tools, because if it helps with productivity, why not? And also, most companies can claim back the productivity grant PSG anyway. So most of these things, I would say, just go ahead and figure out if you have a business, realize that if you pay for certain subscriptions to certain AI tools, that you might be able to claim that back for, taxation or stuff like that. Matt says that Notebook LM by Google is awesome. Great note taking and convert to PDF into podcast and summarize. Yeah, that's actually very good. Actually, Notebook LM is very, very good for podcasting. It is the conversion to podcasting is really impressive. I would say, Valerie, definitely find out for your industry, for the people that are hired in there right now, what are the kind of AI tools they're actually using. I would just go to any of that trade show and just see who is advertising and, try on the systems, just get on, try the systems, and then determine whether or not that is the one that your industry is going to go with. Half the time, these AI tools come out and in a year, they're no longer around. I would say that just have some flexibility that, you're learning quite a number of tools and then, pick and choose as you go. And you don't know who has the ultimate longevity right now.
Maybe we take one more question and
Mm-hmm.
then we're pretty much at time because it's a hour and a half program. I think maybe the last question we can take from Ken is any industry you think or see is sunsetting currently?
Um,
Spicy.
How would you, I don't know how to basically describe the situation we're in right now. It is really, really, really bad. I have never seen our economy this bad for a long time. And then we have people comparing it to, SARS or COVID period, but I actually think that this is even worse. And it will keep getting worse. The one thing I would say is that when we talk about job losses and industries and how things are kind of like panning out for Singapore right now, I would say that the job losses now are both cyclical and structural. So the AI relevance to the job is no longer related to your years of experience. Who cares if you have worked in marketing for 15 years? It's no longer caring about what job certificates that you have. It's about whether or not you actually have the AI skills. And there is no certificate for this right now, right? So it's just a matter of who has gotten started on that, particular software and how many freelancing roles they've done on that software. And then, you can then build that as your experience on your CV. But the job redistribution is basically from white collared to blue collared. So actually we start seeing both sunset and sunrises, I would say. The sunsetting industries tend to be, like I said, the lower operational roles and then the low tactical roles. So the operational roles and the lower tactical roles are being redistributed out. So it's like we see a lot of blue collared roles actually coming up, like, plumber, electrician, aircon servicing. For some reason, it's really doing very well. Funeral services is doing extremely well right now. So it's like there is sunset, there's sunrises as well. But the thing is, when people are telling me, so it's not a total job situation right now, but I say to you, like, we have studied like 4 years in our university to get to white collar jobs, only for you to be told that there's no white collar jobs left, so you should go back to blue collar jobs. And so a lot of people are still going to get impacted. And so I would encourage people now to think about whether or not you need to go to university, because you don't actually need that thing. What you need is the AI agility. And you can learn coding language from anywhere. You don't have to go to university. Right now, a lot of geopolitical risks as well. So a lot of companies that were affected by the tariffs in the US have been, basically suffering because of the volatility. So you also need to understand that these companies have no more bandwidth to hire more people. In fact, there's a lot of these companies that are actually shutting down. F&B businesses, for example, are shutting down primarily due to just rents going out of control. And they keep saying the same thing, which is they cannot hire the lower level operational staff. And so I feel that also what I have heard right now is that a lot of companies are actually leaving Singapore. They're not leaving Singapore. I mean, Singapore will still be headquarters for now. But then what they're doing is they're subbing out the work to freelance economy. So to me, the freelancing economy is going to grow. So it is much better that you're jumping on right now and you're listing and you're getting like good ratings on, Work or Fiverr or whatever already, so that, when it becomes, 10,000 people on there, your good rating will definitely set you up as one of the first few people that they should be hiring. I think companies are leaving Singapore due to the insanely high cost of manpower and also the cost of rental compared to our neighbors. So our neighbors have basically caught up in terms of our education level. They, have the same skills. They have the same education level. In fact, their schools have put in AI a lot sooner than our schools did. So, and so they're still cheap. While, a coder with 6 years of experience from Malaysia, for example, is about 5,000 ringgit only. For us to hire a fresh graduate in Singapore with zero experience for coding, they're asking for 5,000 Sing. So 5,000 ringgit or 5,000 Singapore dollars, it doesn't make, it's really a no-brainer. Like a lot of companies are actually hiring from overseas right now. It is actually usually about 3 times more expensive, and pretty much it's just the economy is not doing well. I think also there's a lot of shedding of the overhire from the COVID boom. A lot of M&A redundancies as well, with all the telcos merging. So sticking to what worked about 8 years ago, that's never going to work again. This is a dynamic leapfrog shift in the jobs market. So, we don't see that, if you send out 300 CVs that you're going to get anywhere, which is what most of the news articles are basically writing. Sending out 300 CVs is still useless. You need to be closing in on 800 or 900, and that's only one job offer. So companies are pivoting, but it's also a very compressed time period right now. So we don't know where this is going to go, whether or not companies are actually going to leave for good. But just brace yourself, start building income forever, start building income now. And the thing is, there is, like Matt says, there is skills future for handyman courses. I am telling you right now that in the UK, I remember I got a tenant that didn't go to university. What he did was he just did some apprenticeship at Citibank. And then, 4 years later, when his friends graduated, he was actually their manager. I also know that in the UK, plumbers are right now earning between 250 to 350,000 because, there's not enough plumbers in the UK. And they're getting paid like ridiculous amounts of money. Sometimes the call out fee is just, already 150 per hour, and then they're clocking like 10-hour days and stuff like that. So they're doing very, very, very well, whilst basically the same person that went to university graduated with student loan debt, they find themselves just earning 40,000, 60,000. So going to university doesn't guarantee you, basically a job anymore, and a good job. So I would say just be really mindful of the fact that the economy has really shifted. It has really changed, which is why I'm telling people, please, nothing is beneath you. Just go and do all sorts of stuff, because right now in the UK, plumbers are earning more than university graduates. So, and I see that Singapore is walking into that same trajectory. And already, we've had newspaper articles of people that went on to do aircon servicing, that they are doing so ridiculously well right now. So, they've started an aircon servicing business, and, they're just going in to do a blower on the aircons, and then they can charge like $200 for it already. And it's like a 30-minute job. So it's like you need to figure out what is your next step. And a lot of it is providing home services that AI cannot basically take over. And the faster you get into it, the better. So, for me, I thought, mates would be the next big thing to automate and to, so that's why I started Mate Without Borders. And I could be wrong. I may not be right. So who knows what's going to happen, right? So it's just that, I'm just going to start it, just get started, and then you figure it out along the way. And then whether or not you made a good call or a bad call, just then shift your mindset and shift your strategy along the way. Because remember, you are that tree. If a branch breaks off, let it break off. But from that node, what is that next 3 steps that you can take from that one single node? What's the next 3 steps that you can basically take? So just keep moving, just keep moving, and just keep moving. So yeah. What other kind of work that you guys are seeing are kind of like available? Because I can see, over here, there's a really good discussion about, there's a lot of roles, but Singaporeans are not willing to try it out. And this is what I'm saying to you, like, don't be that person, because it's like the job market has shifted. The economy is shifting, and it's a leapfrog shift. If you are the first to get off that that big ego in your head, and do certain things, then you will be the manager of the last person coming into that industry. So I would say that jump in quick and jump in fast, and realize that, you know, the world is not the same anymore. So there's a lot of enforcement roles. What do you mean by enforcement roles, Valerie? And also kind of like construction projects and stuff like that. They're always looking for project managers, and funeral services, they're also looking for project managers. They're also looking for, you know, salespeople. So you could always just pivot and go into those non-traditional industries. I really think that this is the time to do weird random stuff, and then you'd be very surprised where things are going.
Maybe I guess like for our last question, maybe we take the one for the fresh grad, since I guess like this is where we wanted.
Not for the fresh grad.
Yushen asked for fresh grads without much experience, how should they seek jobs when AI can do so many entry-level works?
Yeah, so the idea right now is fresh grad unemployment rate is 51.9%. You're not going to find a job. They are not hiring fresh grads. It's a full stop right now. So for you, I would say don't even bother with the 4 hours trying to look for a job. I would say immediately start listing your own services on so I don't know, Yushen, what did you study, Yushen? If you could talk to me, that would be helpful. So for me to get a little bit of context, but what I would say is just list your services for yourself as a freelancer. And because you've had no experience, you need to list yourself cheap just to be able to start off a portfolio. So I would list myself as, you know, basically, you know, if people in general on Fiverr is charging $80, I would put myself at $50, for example, to say that, you know, I can do videography work, I can do photography work. I don't know what you studied. And then I would do a freelancer type role first, just to accumulate the AI experience. Or I will again figure out for your industry, what is the AI tool that they're using. Then what I'll do is I'll go and learn that AI tool, and I just call companies and tell them that I can help them implement, you know, AI chatbot, or I can help them to implement whatever. And then once you start building up that portfolio of, you know, skills and stuff like that, maybe about, you know, 6 years later, when you have a lot of your portfolio, there will be companies calling you to bring you on board into their company. But I think by that time, you would have freelanced so much that you don't care for a job anymore, because, you know, the hours are significantly more flexible on freelancing. So that is for Yushen. So I would say that for entry-level jobs right now, I won't even bother trying that hard. I mean, if you want to, you can still try and see whether or not you can hit the 1,800 CVs. You know, just spend 4 hours every day sending out 20 CVs or sending out 40 CVs. But there's just so many fake jobs on job portals right now that, you know, even if you send 100, all 100 might have gone to fake job portals. So it's just a very difficult time. You need to understand how to split your time. But what I don't want people to do is after they graduate, they are just sitting there waiting for the job to come. It's not coming. So, you know, get on with it, you know, start a new strategy. You know, you need to try something else and something new. You cannot be just sitting there and waiting for that job to come. It's just simply not the situation right now.
Hi, Julie. Thank you for your answer. I'm actually asked this question for my friend.
Okay.
He's graduate from NTU with major in economics.
Economics, okay.
Yeah, and he has some skills like doing the Python coding, but still cannot find a proper job at this time.
So companies like myself, for example, sometimes we go onto Fiverr because, you know, we need one extra coder for like 3 months. So things like that do exist. So if he's like a Python coder, I would say that that skill is significantly more usable than an economics skill. But with economics, he might be able to, you know, do some kind of consulting work for certain types of companies. So I don't know how good he is at his, you know, and how he think he can pivot off his studies in economics. He could also try teaching. He can also try tutoring for now, just, you know, while continuing to look for an economics job. But for someone like your friend, I highly suggest that he try one of these highly skilled migrant programs and get out of Singapore.
Thank
Yushen?
you. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so
I'm
the
taking
thing is,
notes.
Yeah, so for economics degrees, I know that Australia views that as a limited skill set. So they are looking for people. So Australia is definitely looking for people. Japan is also looking for people with an economics background. So those type of roles, I would say that, you know, don't stay in Singapore. Like the jobs are not here. The jobs are in Japan and Australia.
Okay, thank you so much.
No problem.
Okay, then I'm so sorry to everybody else's questions, but we're gonna have to close the program now because we are a little bit over time. Thank you so much, Juliet, for staying over
No
your allotted
problem.
time. But if you would like to come and talk to Juliet in person, please come down on the 18th. She'll be here. You can ask her all your questions then. But if not, yeah, we will see you again at another library program. Thank you so much for spending your lunch hour with us. Thank you so much, Juliet, for being here.
Thank you,
And yeah,
everybody.
we'll see you again soon.
All right,
All
bye.
right, bye-bye. Thank you, everyone. Okay, I'm gonna close the meeting room now. Juliet, I'll send you the
Yeah,
recording
yeah.
link in a little bit.
Okay. Thank
Thank
you very
you.
much. All
See
right,
you
bye.
guys. Bye.